43 girls have been reported missing.
43 doesn't seem possible. Find the pack of wolves preying on our children. Slaughter them all. Marshals.
So let's start where we always start, and that's with Casey. And after everything he had to carry coming out of episode 6, I think it's safe to say that this man is not in a good place right now. Not mentally, not emotionally, not in any way. Think about what he had to do. He had to sit across from Tate, look him in the eyes, and basically tell him that the one person he asked to bring home might already be gone. Like, imagine carrying that. Imagine being Casey in that moment. You went in with a plan, your team executed, you thought you had them, and then it all just fell apart. 3 men dead, no girls recovered, and now you have to answer for that. That is a weight that does not just go away after one episode. And from what this trailer is showing us, it absolutely does not go away in episode 7 either. Because from the very first seconds of this trailer, you can see that Casey is different. There's something in the way he's moving, the way he's carrying himself that tells you this mission has gotten personal for him now. It was always serious, but there's a difference between serious and personal. And right now for Casey, this is personal. The whole operation in episode 6 was supposed to be the moment they finally got the girls back. They had the intel, they had the location, they had everything lined up. And it still wasn't enough. That motorcycle gang didn't just outsmart them, they embarrassed them. And I don't think Casey is the kind of man who lets that go. So when you watch this trailer and you see him in what looks like a planning room going over everything again, you can tell that he is not approaching this the same way anymore. The careful, calculated version of Casey might still be in there somewhere, but there's an edge to him now that wasn't there before. And honestly, that might be exactly what this operation needs, but it could also be what gets someone killed. And speaking of the operation, the trailer is making it very clear that episode 7 is not going to slow down for a single second. Because from what we're seeing, the Marshals are going back in. They are not sitting back and regrouping from a distance. They are going straight back at this motorcycle gang, and this time it looks like they're doing it from the inside. Like the whole infiltration angle that was teased in the episode 6 synopsis seems like it's actually being pushed further here. And that is terrifying when you think about it properly, because this isn't some ordinary criminal operation they're dealing with. These are people who kidnapped 43 girls, who killed without hesitation, who blew up a van just to send a message. These are not people you go undercover with and expect it to be clean. Something is going to go wrong, I'm almost certain of it. The only question is how wrong and who pays the price for it. Now let's talk about Miles for a second, because I feel like his tension with Casey is something that's been building for a while now. And episode 7 looks like it might be the episode where it actually boils over, because in episode 6, Miles was already frustrated. He felt like Casey's decision in episode 5 cost them their best shot at recovering the girls. And even though Casey had his reasons, even though every single one of us watching understood why he made that call, Miles didn't see it that way. And that kind of disagreement doesn't just disappear because they moved on to the next operation, it stays. It sits between two people and it changes the way they communicate, the way they trust each other, and more importantly, the way they perform in the field. And when you're dealing with a mission this dangerous, that kind of friction is not just uncomfortable, it is genuinely dangerous. Because here's the thing about Miles that I think is really important to understand. He cares. He genuinely cares about those girls and about doing this right. And his frustration with Casey isn't coming from a bad place. It's coming from the same place Casey's intensity is coming from, which is the feeling that they failed. But the problem is that two people who both care deeply and both feel like they failed can very easily start directing that frustration at each other instead of at the actual problem. And from what this trailer is suggesting, that is exactly what's happening. There's a moment in the trailer where you can feel the tension between them just through the way the scene is framed, and it doesn't look like a conversation that ends with both of them shaking hands and moving forward together. It looks like something that forces one of them to make a choice. And whatever that choice is, it's going to have consequences that we feel for the rest of this season. But here's what makes episode 7 feel different from everything that came before it. The stakes have never been higher than they are right now. For the first 6 episodes, as intense as things got, there was always a sense that the Marshals were the ones with the upper hand. Maybe not always in the moment, but overall, they were the ones with the badge, the training, the resources. But after episode 6, that sense of control is gone. This motorcycle gang knows that the Marshals are coming for them. They know they've been identified. They know an operation was launched against them and failed. And people like that, people who operate the way this gang operates, they don't just wait around to be caught. They adapt, they move, they make sure the next time someone comes for them, the cost is so high that whoever survives thinks twice before trying again. And that is what Casey and his team are walking back into. That is the environment episode 7 is being set in. And when you watch this trailer knowing all of that, every single scene hits differently. Now let's shift over to something that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about after this trailer, and that is the Haley situation, because the last thing we knew going into episode 7 is that Haley's fate is uncertain. Casey had to tell Tate that she might be gone. And the way the show has been handling this storyline, the way they've been refusing to take the easy route and just resolve everything neatly, tells me that they are not going to give us a simple answer here. Not yet, because if Haley was just gone, if she was just dead and the show was moving past her, there would be no reason to keep mentioning her. There would be no reason for the trailer to keep putting her at the center of everything. But she is still very much at the center of everything, which means something is still in motion with her story, and here's what I think is happening. I think Haley is alive. I think she's being used. Not in the way some of the other girls might be being used, but specifically, I think the gang knows that she's the girl the Marshals were focused on. I think they figured out that she was the one who made contact, the one who could have gotten help, and because of that, she's become something more than just another victim to them. She's become leverage. She's become a message, and the gang keeping her alive, but making sure she can't be found is the cruelest possible thing they could do, because it means that as long as she's out there, Tate and Casey and everyone connected to this case can't fully close the door on her. They can't grieve and they can't move on, and they can't focus entirely on the others, and that kind of psychological hold is exactly the kind of thing a group like this would use intentionally. And I want to talk about Tate for a minute, because honestly, I feel like he's the emotional heart of this whole season, and I don't think the show gets enough credit for how well they've built his character. Because think about where Tate started. He came to his father because he needed help. He had one ask, one simple human request, and that was to bring back someone he cared about. That's it. He wasn't asking for justice or a big investigation or anything complicated. He just wanted his friend back. And what he's gotten instead is a front row seat to how complicated and messy and painful this whole world really is. And episode 7 looks like it's going to push him even further into that world, which worries me a little. Because Tate is not a marshal. He's not trained for any of this. He's a young guy who is now carrying information and grief and uncertainty that most adults would struggle to handle. And the trailer suggests that he might try to do something with all of that, something that the adults around him would absolutely not approve of. Because that's the thing about people who feel helpless. When you've been told to wait, when you've been told to trust the process, when you've watched the process fail in front of your eyes, at some point the waiting becomes unbearable. And Tate has been waiting. He's been patient. He's respected the boundaries, but this trailer is hinting that his patience might be running out. And that is a very dangerous thing in a situation this volatile. If Tate tries to take matters into his own hands, even with the best intentions, even out of pure love for his friend, he could ruin everything. He could tip off the gang. He could put himself in danger. He could put the girls in danger. And the worst part is that he would do all of that without fully understanding what he was walking into, because nobody has truly told him everything. And that gap between what Tate knows and what the audience knows is one of the most suspenseful things this show is doing right now. Let's also talk about the 43 girls, because I feel like they're easy to reduce to just a number when we talk about this case, but the show has been doing a really good job of reminding us that they're not. They're real people with families and lives and people waiting for them, just like Haley. And what episode 7 seems to be building toward is a situation where the Marshals have to make a choice. Because if the gang realizes their operation is being compromised, their first instinct is not going to be to run. Their first instinct is going to be to make sure there's nothing left behind that can be traced back to them. And I don't want to say that out loud too directly, but I think we all understand what that means. The clock on this operation is not just ticking because of strategy or because of the difficulty of infiltrating a gang. It's ticking because of what happens to those 43 girls if the operation takes too long or goes wrong. And the trailer is very deliberately putting that pressure in front of us. You can feel it in every scene. There's no moment in this trailer that feels relaxed or like things might actually be okay. Even the scenes that look like they're setting something up rather than showing action, even those scenes have this undercurrent of dread running through them. And that tells me that the writers and the directors know exactly what they're doing with the pacing of this episode. They're not giving us a breather. They're not letting us settle. Every single moment in episode 7 is going to be pushing towards something, and by the end of it, I genuinely believe we're going to be sitting there with our mouths open the same way we were after episode 5. Okay, now I want to get into Cal's storyline, because after everything that happened with the Haley situation and the gang operation, it can be easy to forget that there's a whole other emotional layer running through this show, and it all centers around Cal and his daughter Maddie. And after what we saw in episode 5 and 6, this trailer is suggesting that their story is about to reach a turning point. Not a resolution, not a happy ending, but a turning point. Because Cal has been showing up, he's been going to that bar, he's been letting Belle guide him through conversations he clearly has no idea how to have. And all of that effort has been invisible to Maddie. She's not seeing the trying, she's only seeing the showing up. And to her, those are two very different things. Because here's what Maddie knows. She knows her father wasn't there. She knows what it felt like to grow up without him. She knows what it meant to need someone and not have them. And when Cal shows up now, even with genuine intentions, even with real regret, what she sees is not a man trying to make things right. What she sees is a man who decided to show up when it was convenient for him, when he was ready, not when she needed him. And that is a wound that does not heal just because the person who caused it finally decided to care. It takes more than showing up. It takes more than trying. And I think episode 7 is going to be the episode where Cal finally starts to understand that, because from what this trailer is hinting at, something is going to happen that forces Maddie to confront him directly. Not walk away, not ignore him, but actually face him. And that conversation, whenever it happens, is going to be one of the most emotionally loaded scenes this show has ever done. And then there's Belle. And I have said it before and I will say it again, Belle is doing something really special in this show. Because she's not just a supporting character who exists to make Cal feel better about himself. She's genuinely invested in the outcome. She cares about what happens between Cal and Maddie, not because it affects her directly, but because she understands what it means to have family complicated by time and absence and things left unsaid. And the way she guides Cal through these conversations, the way she gives him language for things he doesn't know how to express, that's not a small thing. That's the kind of relationship that changes people. And I think by the end of this season, we're going to look back at Belle's role in Cal's journey and realize that she was the most important person in it. Not Maddie, not the other Marshals, not anyone else. Belle. But there's something in this episode 7 trailer that made me stop and think about Belle in a different way. Because up until now, she's been the stable one. She's been the grounded one. She's been the person who has everything figured out while everyone else is falling apart. And I think episode 7 might be the episode that cracks that a little. Because nobody is that stable forever. Nobody carries other people's weight indefinitely without it starting to affect them. And I think there's a moment coming where Belle's own story gets a little more complicated, where something from her past or her present intersects with everything she's been helping Cal navigate, and suddenly she's not just the guide anymore. She's also someone who needs guiding. And that shift, if the show handles it the way they've handled everything else so far, is going to make her one of the most fully realized characters of this entire season. Now let's come back to the operation for a second, because the infiltration angle is the thing that is going to define episode 7 more than anything else. And I want to make sure we really sit with how dangerous this is. Going undercover into a motorcycle gang that has kidnapped 43 girls and already killed people without hesitation is not something that has a lot of room for error. One wrong word, one moment where someone's cover slips, one piece of information that doesn't line up, and the whole thing falls apart in the most violent way possible. And the Marshals know this. They've done operations before. They understand the risks, but knowing the risk and being prepared for the reality of it are two very different things, and this gang is not like anything they've faced before. Previous cases in this show, even the serious ones, were solved within the episode. This has been running for 3 episodes now. That tells you everything about how different this enemy is. And the trailer is really leaning into that. There's an energy in the footage that feels genuinely unstable. Like anything could happen at any moment. Like the ground could just fall out from under everyone involved. And that's not an accident. That's the show telling us to not get comfortable. That's the show reminding us that nobody has plot armor here, that just because we like a character doesn't mean they're going to be okay. And when a show earns that kind of trust from its audience, when you genuinely believe that the story is willing to hurt you, that's when the stakes become real. That's when every scene matters. That's when you don't take your eyes off the screen. And that's exactly where Marshals has gotten with its audience right now. And episode 7 looks like it's going to use that trust to deliver something we are absolutely not going to see coming. And before we wrap everything up, I want to come back to one thing that I mentioned briefly, and I don't think we've given enough attention to, and that is the girl from episode 4. The one who was flirting with Casey, the one whose dad was in that helicopter crash, the one who made him smile. For the first time in 4 episodes. Because she hasn't come back since then, and I've been thinking about it. And I genuinely believe the show put her in episode 4 with a very specific purpose. You don't give a character that much screen presence. You don't make her the reason we see Casey smile for the first time, just to never bring her back. That's not how good storytelling works. And this show has proven that it knows how to tell a story, so the question isn't whether she comes back. The question is when and in what context. And episode 7 might be exactly the right moment for that, because Casey is in a dark place right now. He's carrying guilt over the operation. He's dealing with friction with Miles. He's facing the possibility that a girl might be dead because of decisions made on his watch. That is a lot for one person to carry alone. And historically, the times when characters like Casey finally let someone in, it's not because things are going well. It's because things have gotten so hard that the walls they've built around themselves start to crack. And if that girl comes back in episode 7, even just for a brief moment, even just for a scene, it's going to mean something completely different than it meant in episode 4. Because now we know what Casey is carrying, and seeing someone cut through that even slightly is going to hit a lot harder. I also want to say something about this show overall, because I think it deserves it. 5-6 episodes in, and Marshals has done something that a lot of shows try to do and fail at, which is making you care about every single storyline running at the same time. Like usually with ensemble shows, there's always one storyline you're more into and one you're kind of just tolerating until you get back to the good stuff. But with Marshals, I don't feel that way. When we're talking about the gang operation, I'm completely in it.